Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak right here on Citizen TV. We continue looking at the issues behind the headlines. Today being August the 8th, exactly 1 year after the elections, the general elections last year. And with the exception of the presidential election, which had a repeat on October 26th last year, every other elected leader in Kenya was elected on the 8th of August. And we continue getting a scorecard of where Kenya is as a country in terms of leadership, in terms of governance, in terms of development, and even our politics. Just before the break, we were looking at what the executive has been doing, but we want now to look at the National Assembly. One headline that is screaming on the dailies today: MPs tighten noose on Rotich and Aidan. Chairman of Joint Committee bow to pressure to introduce amendments that could pave way for ejection of 2 cabinet secretaries. The story continues on page 4 of the Standard. And basically there's been this push and pull, a ping pong of some sort, with the Joint Committee of Agriculture and Trade, Joint Committee, which was investigating the sugar importation saga. A report is ready to be tabled in Parliament, but members of the same committee have come out and said that that report has been watered down. Now, what we are reading today is a push to amend that report and actually indict 2 CSs, namely Aidan Mohammed, who was in charge of industrialization of trade back then, and now trade and industrialization, and now a CS Henry Rotich, who's in charge of treasury. But questions abound with regard to the conduct of members of the National Assembly. Is this push to actually indict members of the cabinet even genuine? We do have one member of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Wanga, woman representative of Homa Bay County. Yeah. A lot has been said about the conduct of you and your colleagues in the National Assembly and how these probes have been conducted. Now we are seeing a report in which even you or your colleagues disagree on its contents. The fact that some claim it's been watered down, some claim some are now pushing. There's even another push by a different member of the National Assembly to have CS Henry Rotich impeached. But the question is, and Kenyans are now asking, with all that we're seeing, with all that is playing out, the fact that you're even saying the report may have been doctored, the fact that we're even saying that some of the members could be out to protect these CSs, is this push genuine?
Well, I think the committee, from where I sit, the committee, in terms of the probe and the work that they did over time, they tried. And Parliament is a political house. It is not, there's no expectation that everybody will agree on everything. That that a committee consisted of over 30 members, you know, 38 members will sit and agree, you know, on just one line. It is a political house. People agree. It is a house of debate. That is why people, you know, talk from different directions and say, this is my view on this matter. So for me, I'm not worried that members are disagreeing. What is worrying is the allegation that the report was watered down. And I think there is already a solution to that, you know, because if we feel, because the report currently, I've read it, and it says that, you know, Ethics and Anti-Corruption, you know, Commission and maybe the DCI should move in and investigate the role played by CS Henry Rotich in, you know, the importation and so on. But then there is a solution to that. If that is not strong enough, according to how the committee agreed, somebody is already moving an amendment to say that the National Treasury should be held responsible. The Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury should be held responsible for the excess sugar that was imported. And I agree with that position. Why? Because you cannot put up a gazette notice that just gives room to every Tom, Dick and Harry to import sugar to a quantity unknown, you know, as much as you want, you know. This was reckless.
But you've just said that, yes, indeed, you admit that Parliament is indeed a political house. Yes. And politics is about interest.
Yes.
And there could be members, your colleagues, who are out to protect certain interests as well.
I can't deny that.
So is that what we're seeing playing out? That maybe some are trying to defend some cabinet secretaries?
I can't deny that could be playing out. But what is important in this is, were you elected to represent a cabinet secretary, or were you elected to represent the people who elected you? And I think That is what every member of parliament must reflect on. But I can't deny that there are people who are trying to protect their interests. Maybe this person is from their own community, and maybe the interest of their community at this time is to ensure this person is protected, you know, and so on and so forth. But on this matter, we must look at what is the interest of the people. Let me tell you, my brother Fred, with the current condition that we have and the floodgates that were open for sugar in this country, there is no way the sugar industry in this country can survive. And there is no way me as a member of parliament representing the sugar belt can sit and see people let off the hook.
Okay.
This and this is what interests are about. Sometimes it's not just your personal, it is interest of the people you represent.
And if we could ask more about these interests, because they may exist. In as far as CS Rotich for Treasury is concerned, what interests are we looking at here?
Well, I think there would be people who, you know, there would be people who would be saying this is our side of the Jubilee, you know, coalition. This is our appointee. We must protect him by all means. You know, there are people who would be saying, like myself, who would be saying, what has this done to the sugar industry? And can we sit back and just clap one? And those are people who will be standing against, you know, who will be supporting any amendment to tighten even further the news on CS Rotich.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Kirwa, the kind of interest we're talking about, this is 1 year after the elections. Would you say this National Assembly has settled down enough to actually give a proper judgment on any such issue? Because it appears a lot of divisions and vested interests emanating even from how the election was conducted. And 1 year later, would you be confident in any decision from any probe by the National Assembly?
Well, I do not want to judge them harshly. But what has happened is that there is increasing popularity of bad manners in the National Assembly, in the sense that when you have already made a recommendation that you refer, and that should be the style Parliament ought to operate, that certain competent authorities should be, of necessity, be allowed to investigate somebody whose character is in disrepute. But now, further amending the same and saying, let the guy go home, is almost lynching the individual. Because the last time I knew, a decision like this, opening floodgates for sugar importation, is not a decision that is taken by one person. There is the Minister of Agriculture who must have recommended. There is also a cabinet that must have met and decided we are doing it because there is shortage, because that has been the tradition, that between March and probably June, you open some gates for purposes of importation of sugar when the factories are in for repair. After that, you will feel the deficit, which is 1/3 of what we consume as a nation. But what they imported is enough for us to consume, if it is not laced with mercury, for the next 4 years. And therefore, we have closed the sugar subsector as a country. Therefore, what I see is that this opening of floodgates is beyond Rotich. By lynching Rotich is probably lynching him for purposes of not allowing the fire to expand beyond the current CS trade, the former CS trade and the current CS treasury. Because either the cabinet itself must have decided, or there was a meeting away from the cabinet that decided we are allowing importation of sugar, and you realize the same sugar that was imported, a lot of taxes have not been paid to the tune of 37 billion shillings.
Okay. Now, in these three different conflicting conclusions by the National Assembly, because one, the report initially we were made to understand it said that these CSs should be held responsible for what happened. Then it was changed to their role in the importation of sugar should be investigated further by the DCI. Now we're coming back to just fire them.
Just because some people must have met somewhere and they are fearing to mention other individuals. Otherwise, unless this government is not a government, otherwise it's supposed to be somebody decided away from the CSS. A CS cannot just wake up one morning.
Why do you think the National Assembly is disagreeing like this?
They are disagreeing because they have vested interest.
Fire them.
Some of the members of National Assembly are also part of the cartel that is importing sugar. not necessarily directly, but through their proxies, and they have also their vested interest. Some might have been financed for purposes of the last election, and therefore they cannot bail the cat because they are part of the problem.
Yes. You want to say something?
Yeah, but somebody must take responsibility. And when sugar is going to be imported, there is somebody who must determine what the shortfall is. Is it 300,000 metric tons? I mean, what are we talking about? Is it how much sugar are we importing? How much shortfall is there? And these are the people we are saying. The Minister for Agriculture at the time should have said, this amount of sugar is what we need to import.
Yeah. That's
but
true.
You see the problem we are having, and this is not for nothing. How can a gazette notice be put, just opening window for importation of sugar, tax-free, without putting any limit? You know, because if you look at the same gazette notice, there's also importation of milk powder, you know, for industrial purposes. But there is a very, very clear clear amount of milk powder that is going to be imported. It is clearly stated that we are going to import such and such an amount of milk powder. And this is why we are unhappy with the former Minister for Agriculture, with you know, the CS for you know, National Treasury, and even the CS for industrialization. Because why is sugar with mercury in this country? And why did KEBS even deny it in the first place? You know, so these people, I mean, it's not vendetta or anything. It's just that somebody must be held responsible. And he's not being held responsible for letting sugar be imported, because that was a cabinet decision that agreed, let us have sugar imported to bridge the gap. How much sugar? How much sugar are we going to allow in tax-free? How much tax income, revenue have we lost? But now whose responsibility is it to ensure we did not lose it?
Given this,
you know?
the kind of decisions being made, the fact that clearly you're not in agreement, you do not even seem to concur, the committee itself does not even appear to concur, to be in concurrence in as far as what action should be taken. Debate now comes to the House. Do you think it is going to be that easy, or should we really expect, as the headline says, a showdown in the House?
I don't think it's going to be easy either way. I think there are people who hold strong positions on both sides. But it's not a showdown. It's only debate. You know the House, how it operates, it's just you debate. I put my point of view. If you have an amendment, you bring it. People debate it. They either vote it out or you know, pass it. So really, it's not really a showdown. It's just that everybody brings their view, because that is a house of debate. And the numbers, you know, carry the day. If the position I'm holding is popular with members, it will carry the day. If a position that these people should be let off the hook is popular, it will carry the day. So we simply debate. It's not life and death. We debate and we pass. Or defeat.
Yes. Our time is almost up for the news review. Wahiga Mwaura is just about to host South Sudan Ambassador to Kenya, Chol Ajongo, right here on Daybreak. And that's something you need to stand by and watch, given the peace agreement that was signed between the ruling party in South Sudan and the rebel movement. And we do stand by for that. And just before that will be, we have information that there's a building being demolished somewhere along Langata Road, Ombagathi Way, in the ongoing demolitions by NEMA in an attempt to reclaim riparian land. And we'll be giving you live pictures from that end in a short while. Do stand by for that as well. I need to give my panelists one more chance for final comments. Incidentally, on page 5 of the Daily Nation, Central Kenya leaders are vowed to support DP. This is just reigniting the 2022 campaigns. And we're talking about governors here who are at a funeral service. And we're talking about governors from Kiambu, Nyeri, and a member of parliament, Kimani Ngunjiri, for Bahati, talking about this. But as you give your final comments, you could choose to talk about that as well.
Well, my final comments really probably is to do with the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'm worried, he means well, but it seems many people are preoccupied with so many other things, including support for the Deputy President 2022. 2022 is 4 years away, and as I know, people of Central Kenya and history will not defy what we have already known, is that they make their decisions on the eve of elections. So any support pronounced today is just an exercise in futility. They are just looking for other ways of augmenting the income that they have and having their projects launched, and some of them, Arambe, being raised. Otherwise, we are pretending.
Yes. 1 year after the elections, where do you think, on a scale of 1 to 10, in as far as where we're supposed to be heading as a country?
Well, I think we are at 4 because we've just worked. The work started almost like 5 months ago. So I'm sure there is still a lot of work to be done.
Still hope.
Yes, but we are at 40%.
Okay. Honorable Wanga?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to say is 1 year is gone. We have 3 more years. If you say that the last year will be electioneering, but if you give it 2 years practically, the president only has 2 years to deliver and leave his legacy. There's a lot we remember President Kibaki for. We hope there will be something to remember President Uhuru with. For him to achieve his legacy, he must rein in this team Tanga-Tanga. Hii team ya kutanga-tanga, it must be reined in. We must stop the politicking. We must stop the this issue of thinking 2022 is your birthright. We must focus on development. And that is why, as NASA, we said we support the big 4. But we will only support it if it is there and we can, we can see what is happening. You can't support it. You can't support it on paper. I'm hopeful, but I really hope that the politics can be set aside so that we can focus on building the country, so that the Tanga-Tanga team, if there was no politics, the Tanga-Tanga team might find its way to Nyanza, for example, to also launch something. You realize that there is not a single project launched in Nyanza. Why? Because this is a political movement. So if there are no political people, going to clap for you there, you don't go there. So let us stop the politics and do real development.
Okay, thank you so much, Gladys Wanga, Woman Representative, Homa Bay County, and Kipruto Arap Kirwa, Deputy Party Leader, ANC, helping us look at the issues behind the headlines this morning. That has been our news review right here on Daybreak. We now want to move to other matters. South Sudan Ambassador to Kenya, Chola Jongo, is in studio. He'll be sitting down with Wahiga Mwaura right here on Daybreak.